Hello again. What we're going to do now is I've written out my phrases. I've covered over a few of them. And I'll continue to cover over and add more layers and just keep bringing them forward and moving them back and bringing them forward just to remind myself of the things that I want to do more of and have more of and focus more on in my life. Now what I'm going to do is start working on her face a little bit more, doing some more deepening of the shadows, bringing out some of the symbolism. Like you can see the fish in that sort of indoor pond with the rocks around it that was near the tree. Had the fish in it, which for me, I'm a water sign, so I love water. I love long baths. I love going swimming. I love just the feel of water around me. So I can totally understand why that was in there. And it's probably part of my brain saying, do more of that. So, and then the things like the jasmine flowers, and I'm going to start layering those the way I see them, just layered strong in my head. And I'm going to start bringing in more of it's almost like sparks or fire. There was something about that fire, that cozy, warm fireplace in the visioning for me. And like I said, some of you may have been outdoors, which is totally fine. So think about the things that stuck out for you, the things that made you feel good or safe or cozy, or that just really made you feel good about the image that you were seeing or the things that you were smelling or touching. And start working around symbols for those. If there was something like a bunch of fluffy pillows, it could be a feather. You could do like a very fluffy feather as a symbol somewhere in your painting. You could do, if you had things like blankets and duvets, or, because for me, I'm very much a cuddly blanket person. I love a good blanket. And there were on all the pieces of furniture, even though they were like beautiful rustic wooden furniture with plush cushions and stuff, there were all these wonderful soft throw blankets and things everywhere. So you could represent something like that and say a fuzzy shawl that she's wearing, because my muses don't tend to have clothing most of the time. You'll notice in a lot of my paintings I never actually put clothing on my muses. But if you'd like to do like a shawl or some sort of representation of something over her shoulder, then you can do that. It's literally just taking a swipe of color, and if it's something that feels soft in your visioning, then you can just take small strokes with a little brush and make it look fuzzy or fluffy, however you think it felt. So little things like that. Start thinking about the symbolism and the things that you want to pull into the image to remind you when you look at it what you saw, thought, felt, smelled, touched, anything. And keep working with that. It could change, it could evolve. I'm feeling like there's going to be some of that fuzzy blanket thing happening. Like my muses don't tend to have any ever. The most I've ever put on a muse is earrings. So they tend to be quite naked. But I'm kind of feeling like there's this tree root here that goes in front. I'm kind of feeling like there's another one that's going to go up over her shoulder. And I'm not sure if that's going to be a tree root or if it's going to be like one of the fuzzy blankets that were there. I haven't mentally figured it out yet. Not that I'm trying to plan it. I'm simply saying the image hasn't solidified in my head yet. So I don't know. It's kind of coming forward and going back. So it hasn't really made itself definite. I know since the light on her face is coming from this way, and this side of the painting feels like it's going to be darker somehow. It's just how it literally feels to me that it's going to be. There's going to be, of course, somewhere up here, there probably will be a moon or something. Her face could be lit by the sparks in her hair, for all I know. I have no idea. But this is where I'm starting to think about a little bit with composition, things like that. So what I'm going to do, you can watch me do my thing with adding different colors, different shapes, different symbols, and you're basically going to be doing this. This is the final stages of the painting. So what you're going to be doing yourself. Oh, sorry, Zelda wanted to come in, and of course she's a cat, so she's on the wrong side of the door. So now she wants to go out again. I'll be right back. Yeah. Okay. So, as I was saying, what you're going to be doing, continuing on after this video, because this will be the last video for this particular painting style, the Muse portrait version. There will be more painting videos to come in this playlist with the Muse embodiment, where it's literally going to be a full body that you're painting. Simply because some people like to do a portrait and some people like to do a body. I'm keeping it fairly simple with that one so that you don't have to paint necessarily a face or a head or hands or feet, because they're difficult for most people. So I'm just going to keep it so that you can focus on the simple. Keep it as easy as possible for yourself so that you can focus on the feelings and what you're enjoying. This one for me is the one that I love doing, simply because it's what unlocked these particular ways of altering my thought patterns for myself. So I love to share this particular process. The Muse embodiment one also, I'm enjoying sharing simply because the process with that one itself helped me work through a lot of, it's a much deeper journey. So if you don't want to go deeper than what we're doing here, don't watch that playlist on that one. Simply because it will probably require a box of Kleenex and, frustration. So if you like, this is simpler and much more thought-based, I guess. It's almost more thought and imagery-based, whereas the Muse embodiments series of videos is going to be more of a deep dive into past trauma and stuff. So it depends on what you want to do. So with this one, but like I said, I'll be adding those videos later. So they're not in the playlist yet. There's the first one, just so that people can kind of see where I'm going with that. But as soon as I finish the rest of them, I'm on like the second last one. So it'll be in the playlist after. But with this one, what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm just going to move forward with deepening shadows. And you'll be able to see me do this. This stage usually goes fairly quickly. So you'll be able to watch me do it. And you can do it along with me, or you can watch the video and then go to your painting and start working through it yourself. But like I said, you can do as many layers as you want. I just know that I love what's happening here. So my next couple of layers are going to be finishing layers. So this is basically where I'm getting into it. Just rambling away. So you will get to see me just kind of carry on with all of this. Oh, I need that yellow. So this video might end up being a little bit longer, not only because I've just talked myself silly, but because I want you to be able to see. If I break it up into more than one video at this stage, it's just going to be like extra stuff to watch, which is not really necessary at this point with this one, because it's going to go fairly quickly, I think. It feels like it anyway. I could be wrong. There might be another video. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But at this point with it, I kind of feel like it's coming to its point. So I'm just going to go in and start deepening my shadows a little. And you can see, you can still see the warm colors in behind. Like, it's not as though they've disappeared. They're just not as visible anymore. But I'm not going to do super more heavy layers on top of what I've done here, because I genuinely feel like I'm enjoying what's happening in behind. You can see I'll go over the eyebrows a few more times. That's going to happen. I'm going to end up going over a few other parts more times, just because I'm deepening shadows and doing a little bit of stuff here. But I don't imagine that it's going to be too much more on this one in the process. A lot of people, myself included, have trouble knowing when to stop working on a painting. But after you've done a few of them, you'll start to feel it. You'll start to be able to feel when it feels like enough. You'll start to be able to notice that it will feel finished. Like you'll start to move forward and back from your painting, because you're going to, as you get closer to the end, you're going to start stepping away from it to kind of have a look at it and really contemplate what's going on in the painting. And when you start doing that, it's almost an indication to yourself that you're coming close to the end of the process. And for me, I've been backing up quite a bit and looking at this one for the last little bit. So I can see that these last few layers are going to be it. So I'll show you here. You'll notice that I'm deepening some of the color. And I'll come back in like I was talking about earlier with more stars and bring that back out. He's sitting in the window talking to himself. The puppy is just talking away. So I hope he's not too annoying to anyone watching. Some people love the sound of him. Some people think he sounds like a super old little man. And, you know, at 2 a.m. it does get irritating. And he snores in my ear like a little old dude. Am I completely in the way? No. So I'm just deepening some of the spots that I know are going to be deeper. I know that this is going to be deeper. I kind of feel like this is going to go all the way up there. I don't know why. But you can see I'm not putting heavy layers on. I'm just deepening some spots. Because this part of it is where you start getting into keeping some of the things that you really want to keep. And I know some people, like the wonderful teacher that I studied with in 2019, Shiloh Sophia, she has a different style for when she does demonstrations and workshops. So the paintings that she'll do, like as her demonstration paintings for her workshops, won't be this. Hey, don't do that. He likes to bark at random paintings every now and then. But the style that she has is very different from her own personal paintings. But I felt like when I wanted to start sharing my process with you, I wanted to I wanted to make sure that I was sharing my actual process, like what I do when I create a painting for myself. Because the paintings that I create for myself are often the ones that people love the most. So, he wants to play with his toy. He wants to play with his toy. This one here. This little man wants to play. He loves this thing. It's as big as his head, but he loves it so much. So he demands I throw it for him. Yeah, so good. But that was one of the things that I really wanted to do. I wanted to share my genuine actual process with people. Because that's what people were asking for. So I don't want to share something that is created specifically for showing people how to paint the way I paint. Because for me, it's not necessarily about the techniques themselves, although they are important because they help work through certain things. But my paintings look the way they do because of how I paint. In the thin layers with, it's literally like each layer is almost a glaze. So my camera likes to shut off while I'm talking away. So what happens is that there becomes so much depth to it. And that's what people always ask me to teach. So I figured, okay, if I'm going to teach people to do that part of what I do, then I'm also going to teach them the rest of it. So the meditations and the ritual and the things that make me feel good while I'm painting, the reason why I paint, basically. And I wanted to make sure that I shared all of it with you. So that's why the paintings that I do in my demonstrations will also probably always look like the paintings that I just do for myself. And I mean, I can completely understand. I loved her style of teaching. And I can completely understand why she did it that way. Because it's harder to show specific symbols and techniques. I tend to do more explaining than showing. Even though I myself am a very visual learner, I don't want to put ideas in your head for what your symbols should look like. If you have a heart that you want to do, it doesn't necessarily have to look like, the heart, like I've done in some of my paintings. It could look like an anatomical heart, or it could look like something else entirely. And same thing with stars. A lot of my stars look like little dots, and then I have a constellation of 3 almost equilateral stars that are 2 lines, 4 points, very simple. But for me, it has a certain symbolic meaning. And I'm sure I'll be adding them. I feel like they're going to be up in here somewhere. But things like that, like I talk about the symbolism for you, and I try to get you to find your own symbolism, simply because I don't want to influence your experience by showing you how I create symbols. Like I show you how I create some of the symbols that I have in my paintings, but your symbols could look completely different. And I want them to. I don't, your style, if you do the thin layers like I do, might look similar. Your ladies at the beginning might look similar. Or your abstract paintings might look similar to what I do. But in the end, after you've done it a few times, it won't. It'll look completely different from what I do, because you will find your own way of doing it. Bless you. Good heavens, man. And that's also part of the process. Like, the things that I'm showing you to do this are to figure out how to do the process. And then afterwards, you'll find your own way of doing it. But everybody's gotta start somewhere. Shoo-shoo. It's still just a painting, and it hasn't moved or done anything. Oh, I'm so angry. He gets so mad if I don't throw his toy constantly. So angry. Yeah, come here. I got this one. Which one do you want? Got this one. He's very cheeky. He was very patient with me when I was filming with Nicole yesterday. Super, super patient. All quiet and lovely and snored and cuddly and everything. Today, this is literally, it's evening now. I had planned to start the last couple of videos for this series this morning when I woke up. But the little man has been very insistent that it is his day. So, it wasn't until a couple of hours ago that he finally let me come even close to the studio without yelling at me. So I'm not surprised he's yelling at me now. Yes, we're not. We're doing this. No. I understand. I love you. Nope. No. No. We're not going. Not right now. He also wants to go for walks very frequently. He doesn't have a glass bladder, but it's warm outside, so you know. It's warm and it's springtime. There are sniffs to sniff. Shush you. No. 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 All right, I'm going to have to give in and take him for a walk. I'll be right back.